Alright, after what's felt like decades, centuries, millennia, Toyota has finally officially unveiled the A90 Supra. So, happy? No, didn't think so. So, as I just said, January 14th, North American International Auto Show, Toyota finally unveiled the Mark V Supra, for real this time, not just another camo wrap blue ball. And to a very warm welcome from the internet, I might add. For this video, I'm just going to go over my thoughts on everything from the unveiling, the visuals, interior, exterior, specs, pricing, and the hellacious backlash that this car has been getting from the internet. Alright, so the unveiling itself, honestly, really nothing that noteworthy about the actual unveiling event. Seemed like a typical automotive unveiling that a car company would typically do when they're unveiling a new sports car. Akio Toyoda came up on stage, talked about, the lineage of the Supra, talked about how he drove the Mark IV on the Nürburgring, how much the Supra meant to him. It seems like the Supra means a lot to him, so minding the fact that he was overseeing the development of this car, I would say that that's a pretty promising sign. It doesn't sound like he wants this car to be a failure. He also talked about how Gazoo Racing was involved in the development of this car. And it honestly sounds like, regardless of the BMW power plant, it sounds like that Toyota actually really took this car and developed it as a Toyota, rather than just a rebadged BMW. Whether you want to believe that or not. Then they had Fernando Alonso come up on stage, and he drove for Toyota in 24 Hours Le Mans, and he seemed to be pretty pleased with the driving dynamics of the car, which when a professional race car driver comes up and praises the handling of a new sports car, I would say that's also a promising sign. More or less, that's this car's focus is handling. Yeah, as I said, really nothing that noteworthy or cringy about the unveiling. Same can't be said about other manufacturers. He did refer to the Supra as totally lit at one point, but then he went on to explain that he didn't know what that meant until his son told him, which I would say is honest marketing. But anyway, moving on to this car's visuals. Brace yourself, just have a seat for a second. I genuinely think that this is a good-looking car from all angles, especially a top-down shot from the front of the car. I think that's the money shot. Seriously, I do. I think it's a really good-looking design. I think that it's sleek. I think everything flows nicely with the body. I don't think that it's overly designed. I think that it pretty much holds up to a standard that we would hold sports cars being released in 2019 to. But people on the internet just absolutely hate the way this car looks. Like, they despise it. They act like it's literally one of the most disgusting things they have ever seen in their entire life. But people have just been finding, like, literally any possible excuse to hate the way this thing looks. Like, first, the biggest one being that it doesn't look like the Mark IV. One, you cannot expect a car being released in 2019 to look like a car that was discontinued in 2002. I don't really understand why people can't seem to grasp it. And if you cannot see the obvious design cues and inspirations from the Mark IV, I am sorry, but you are blind. Front headlights, aside from the LED accent, are definitely inspired by the Mark IV. The shape of pretty much the entire front half of the car is Mark IV inspired. The rear fender bulge is Mark IV, and the ergonomics of the taillight design, not the taillights themselves, but the placement and such of the taillights, that's definitely inspired by the Mark IV. The sloping back with the ducktail, that's inspired by the 2000 GT. People are saying that it looks too much like an 8.6, and it being a Toyota and corporate design language being a thing in the automotive industry, I am not that shocked by that. Someone even said in the live stream that the rear end looks like an RX-8. Not quite seeing that. People were saying that it looks like a BMW, and that I have to agree on. This is pretty identical to most BMWs. I'm not really sure what it is, though. Maybe the kidney-shaped grille. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it, but it really does look like a BMW. People were also complaining that it doesn't look like the FT1, which we'll touch on that in a second. But anyway, the interior. Now, the interior, that's BMW. That's blatant BMW. The dashboard, the infotainment system, the center console, the shifter, the knob that controls the infotainment system, that's not Toyota, that's BMW. I mean, I don't really have a problem with that, it's just the interior, and it's not a bad looking interior, it's not fantastic, it's an acceptable interior. I do really like the gauge cluster though. The gauge cluster does seem to be unique to the Supra. I really like the shape of it and just how everything is placed within the instrumentation cluster. I think it really gives it like a nice race car feel. The seats are also really nice too. The steering wheel is The steering wheel just kind of looks like a typical Toyota steering wheel, and all the switchgear just kind of looks like it's jammed on there. One thing I really don't like about the steering wheel, there's a little plastic piece at the bottom of the spoke that I really don't understand why that needs to be there. I think if that part was open, the steering wheel would look much better. It probably houses the electronics or something for the buttons on the steering wheel. But yeah, I genuinely think the exterior of this car looks really nice. I especially like it with the matte gray finish and the black wheels for the 890 edition. And I don't think pictures really do it justice either. I think it would look a lot better in person. Anyway, moving on to the specs. We have a 3-liter twin-scroll single-turbo straight 6 producing 335 horsepower and 365 foot-pounds of torque. Available active differential, 8-speed ZF automatic. The normal and sports mode, 0 to 60 at 4.1 seconds, a 50-50 weight distribution, which I like. Available active suspension, variable ratio steering rack, front double joint McPherson struts, and multi-link rear. It's said to weigh between 3,109 and 3,351 pounds, which is not really heavy, but not really light by today's standards. I think it's a pretty nice balance. It's lighter than the Mark IV. The body and the wheelbase is also a little bit smaller than the Mark IV in pretty much every feasible way. Price starts at $49,990. That all being said, there are a few things that I don't like about it. First one being, I really don't like the fact that it has an electronic parking brake. Really don't think any sports car should come with an electronic parking brake. I don't know, that just sounds stupid to me. And the price. Now, I don't really think that it's too expensive, as a lot of people do, but what bothers me about the price, okay, it starts off at $49,990. And when I was going through the specs, you probably heard that I was saying available for a lot of things. Available active differential, available active suspension. I forgot to mention it also has a available Brembo front brakes. With the exception of the Brembos, I think it should be coming with stuff like an active differential or active suspension for a $50,000 price margin. So it sounds like you can rack the price up through options pretty quickly, and I'm not really a fan of that. I think they should have included more performance-oriented options because this is a performance-oriented car as standard. But they don't have the active differential as standard, they don't have the active suspension as standard, but they have lane keep assist and like radar cruise control as standard. Why does a sports car need lane assist and like radar cruise control as standard but not an active differential or active suspension? That just sounds ass backwards to me. But now we move on to the fun part before my camera battery dies. The internet just absolutely wants this thing to crash and burn. I've said a couple times, people are literally thinking of any feasible reason that they can hate this car. It's pretty petty and honestly kind of pathetic. Biggest thing that people are losing their minds over is the fact that it's being co-developed with BMW and it has a BMW power plant. Does it bother me that it has a BMW power plant? Do I wish it had a Toyota power plant? Yeah. But it's not the end of the world for me. I'm the kind of person that really cares more about the actual driving dynamics of the car more than anything, no matter what engine it has, what manufacturer it's made by, who co-developed it, whatever. As long as the car handles well, drives nice, and is just an all-around good performance car, I'm fine. I don't care who made the engine. That's why I'm not a fan of Chevy, but I really like the Corvette. Like, I don't care that it's a Chevy, I care that it's a good car. Plus, I swear to God someone actually said this in a video. I just can't find the video anymore. Someone was interviewing one of the representatives of the Supra and asked them about the BMW co-development. And they said the BMW really didn't have that much input with the actual development of the Supra. Sure, they were using BMW parts and a BMW power plant, but as I said previously again, it sounds like Toyota really actually developed this car as a Toyota, just using BMW parts. And if that's the case, I'm totally fine with that. I'm totally fine with it before because, like I said, I really care about how the car actually drives rather than who developed it or what engine it's using, but that's what it all sounds like to me. I really don't care about the fact that it has a BMW interior or that it uses iDrive, which honestly the newer versions of iDrive are good, so again, that's fine. The next biggest complaint people have is that it's not the FT1. No, it's not the FT1. The FT1 is not a Supra, the Supra is not the FT1. The FT1 was a concept. If you know what a concept is, you know the concept is something that a car company develops to get a basis of what they can develop and what they might input into future vehicles. There's only really two cases I know of the concept looking identical to the production car. That's with the Alfa Romeo 4C and the NSX. But the FT1 wasn't even designed as a super concept. The FT1 was designed as a concept inspired by multiple sports cars of Toyota's past. MR2, 2000 GT, pretty sure the Celica, Supra, obviously. And it didn't even have a straight 6, it had a V6. So if they had gone through with the FT1 design, people would have bitched that it came with a V6 instead of a straight 6. And when Toyota released the FT1, nowhere did they ever say that this is going to be the concept for the new Supra. The internet said that this is the new Supra. Toyota said FT1, internet heard Supra. So anyone who's disappointed that the new Supra isn't the FT1, I'm sorry, that's your own fault. You created an unrealistic expectation that just wasn't going to happen, wasn't going to happen from the beginning. And personally, I'm not just saying this just to be edgy or whatever, I didn't really like the FT1 when it first came out. It's definitely growing on me. I've looked at it a lot more recently, and I'm definitely starting to like the design of it. But I think that definitely looked more so of a supercar concept than just like a mid-range sports car, which the Supra is intended to be, whether people wanted it to be that or not. I do think that we will see the actual FT1 concept come into play at some point, just not with the Supra, probably as a standalone project, as it was intended to be in the first place. Lastly, people have been really complaining that it's not powerful enough. People think it should have had like 400, 500 horsepower. Why? 0 to 60 times horsepower ratings and top speeds do not make a good car. This car was developed with handling and driving feel in mind, not whether it could blow your eyeballs out of its socket because you're going 200 miles an hour down a half mile. That wasn't the point of this car. In retrospect, they really went the way they went with the MR2. The W30 MR2, the third gen, has a lot less power and is a lot slower than the second gen W20 MR2. And people don't like the third gen for that reason. They don't realize that the third gen handles a lot better than the second gen. I'm sure this is probably going to be one of the best handling Supras ever made, but people don't care about that. All they care about is how fast it is or how much horsepower it has. People really need to let go of that mentality. It can really ruin a lot of good cars for you. That's why a lot of people don't like the 8.6, because they think it's too slow, but then again, they don't realize that that's not the point of the car. It's meant to handle well and be drivable. And that's what the Mark V Supra is going to be. It's going to be drivable. You're going to be able to use all the power that the car has to offer, instead of just giving quarter throttle and breaking the speed limit in 5 seconds. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about the new Supra being unveiled, finally. And I just think people really need to actually give this car a chance, and I think people eventually will warm up to it when they find out that it actually handles and drives really nicely. I think that's the pedigree that this car is destined to. Yeah, let me know what you guys think of it. You like it? You hate it? Want to use a flamethrower on it? I will probably have one more video about the North American International Auto Show. Until then, I will see you guys either tomorrow or next week. Alright, have an awesome day. You can be my saving light.